She's a famous American politician and a famous lawyer, Kamala Devi Harris. She was born in USA, but she had her roots in India, where she quoted a lot of times regarding his grandfather, P.V. Gopalan, and mother Shamala, how they shaped her values, personality, and even values of democracy. Born in Oakland, California, USA in 1964, it is her childhood house in Berkeley. Harris graduated from Harvard in 1986 with a degree in political science and economics. She then returned to University of California, Hastings to study law. She was congratulated at university by Black Law Students Association, for which she was a president before. She was elected as a senator from California. She is in news because she is the nominee for 2020 vice presidential candidate for Democratic Party. She is a senator from California, ex-attorney general of California, ex-district attorney of San Francisco. She became chief of career criminal division, where she prosecuted homicide, burglary, robbery, and sexual assault cases, particularly 3 strikes cases, wherein longer sentences for repeated offenders and mandatory life sentence in prison and confiscation of properties. She was the first Afro-American and Indo-American to be nominated, and she was the 3rd female vice presidential running mate. So, to know who were behind her success, as she often quoted, and how she shaped her values and thought process, we need to know the family tree of Kamala Devi Harris. He is Mr. P.V. Gopalan. He was an Indian career civil servant who served as Director of Relief Measures and Refugees in Government of Zambia and later served as advisor to the then President of Zambia. He married Rajam Gopalan. They both had a daughter, Shamala Gopalan. She was born in Chennai, and at the age of 19, she moved to a University of California, Berkeley for pursuing masters in nutrition and endocrinology. And she was very famous for her work in isolating and characterizing the progesterone receptor gene stimulated advances in breast biology and cancer, and she even died of a colon cancer. She joined the Black Civil Rights Movement at Berkeley University, and where she met Donald J. Harris, a Jamaican graduate student in economics. They both got married and had 2 children. One is Maya Harris. She was a famous lawyer who was garnered acclaim for her work as a policy advisor alongside Democratic politicians, including Hillary Clinton presidential campaign. She did her BA from University of California, Berkeley, and later a graduate from law at Stanford Law School. She is none other than Kamala Devi Harris. Harris' views on Indian origin and African descent. He was his grandfather, P.V. Gopalan. I remember the stories that they would tell and the passion with which they spoke about the importance of democracy. As I reflect on those moments in my life that have had the most impact on who I am today, I was not conscious of it at the time. But it was those walks on the beach with my grandfather in Besant Nagar that had a profound impact on who I am today. Harris said this in a 2018 speech to an Indian American group. My mother, who was a very strong influence on my life, always said, Kamala, you may be the first to do many things, but make sure you are not the last. Kamala Devi quoted regarding her mother, and it continues. At a swearing-in ceremony, including 41 children and youth in 2017, Harris said, looking at this group, I can't help but think of a young woman roughly the age of many of you. She was born in Chennai in the south of India, where she had been a talented singer and a precocious student. And this young woman dreamt of becoming a scientist. She wanted to study at one of the top universities in the world, the University of California, Berkeley. She was only 19, but her father let her travel halfway around the world with the agreement that when she finished school, she would return home to a traditional Indian marriage setting. But at Berkeley, this young woman met a young man, also an immigrant from Jamaica, a top economics student. And so instead of an arranged marriage, she went on against thousands years of tradition and chose a love marriage. That woman was my mother, Shamala Gopalan. It was a hard choice and a brave choice that she made, fueled by love and optimism. Her aunt lined up 108 coconuts, an auspicious number in Hinduism, to be smashed, and it takes a whole day to arrange that. Her aunt said. Harris won the election by the slimmest of margins. By seeing the quotations, she had belief in Hindu values and traditions and rituals. She is interested in inheriting cultures from grandfather and mother Shamala Gopalan. In her memoir, Harris writes that her mother also knew that her adopted homeland would see Maya and me as black girls, and she was determined to make sure we would grow into a confident black woman. Kamala herself chose to attend historically black populated Harvard University rather than an Ivy League school. But contrary to the expectations of Tamil Brahmin family, the P.V. Gopalan's family, Harris enjoys pork chops, which was prohibited eating in Tamil Brahmin's family, and to her proud Jamaican father's displeasure, Harris makes jokes about pork smoking, Jamaicans, the marijuana, and ganja. The tussle begins over whether Harris is more black or more Indian. She has repeatedly said both sides of her heritage are important in a balanced way. So why Joe Biden picked Kamala Harris? What was the reason why he chose a female vice president? She had very great electoral experience in California. She won 3 times for which she contested, and her simpatico with Biden, her likeness, and criminal justice experience. She was very much an advocate who prosecuted homicide, burglary, robbery, and sexual assault cases in a different way, and especially the 3 strikes cases. This criminal justice experience will be useful for the Joe Biden's election campaign. She was backed by a good number of voters of African American descent and Indian American immigrants. She was a very strong fundraiser for Democrats. And Joe Biden's commitment to a woman vice presidentship nominee. Her liabilities? Unclear campaigning persona. Harris' presidential campaign was hobbled by her struggle to convey clearly what she stood for. She switched positions on Medicare for all within 6 months. Similarly, she branded herself as a progressive prosecutor early in her campaign, despite a record back to 2003 of presenting herself as a tough on crime. The Trump campaign already dubbed Harris as a phony Kamala on Tuesday. Mixed feelings among black voters, whether to vote or not. Because of her prosecutorial record, some black voters are ambivalent about Harris. Yet several experts said, and social media reaction on Tuesday backed them, that the potent symbolism of an African American woman on the Biden ticket may help counter that skepticism. Tough on criminals, especially blacks. So, will the rise of Kamala Harris be advantageous to India? Harris has batted for a strong ties between India and US. But at the same time, she was critical of the situation in Kashmir after the revocation of Article 370. She said, "We have to remind that Kashmiris are not alone in the world. We are keeping a track on the situation. There is a need to intervene if the situation demands." This is what Harris said regarding Kashmir issue. She even went on obliquely criticized External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar for not meeting Jaipal, the US Congresswoman, and other Congress members due to Jaipal's criticism of the Indian government regarding Kashmir issue. Harris even skipped the Howdy Modi event held in September 2019 in the US, reportedly as a protest against India's handling of the Kashmir issue. Meanwhile, Biden, her partner in the election, has been critical of Citizen Amendment Act, and he said, "Kashmir, the Indian government should take all necessary steps to restore the rights of all people of Kashmir, and the restrictions on dissent such as preventing peaceful protest or shutting down the internet weakens the democracy." Harris is against the revoking of H-1B visas and has a pro-immigrant stance because of her parents. She was called for providing them citizenship without hardship. Indians in Tamil Nadu, especially Trichy and Mannalgudi, from where her grandfather was from, by raising flexis around the city. The Biden-Harris administration, if elected, Will deal with India broadly on thorny issues like trade and IPR issues, and even they can help in reforms of UNSC and NSG, etc. But Biden has gone out of his way to stress the strategic importance of India-US partnership because he was instrumental in US-India civil nuclear deal. Looking at her views on Kashmir and immigration laws, she had a centrist ideas like Obama and Joe Biden. Indian society largely believes identity is determined by one's birth and family rather than by individual choices and action. For some, Harris is an Indian while Sonia Gandhi an Italian. Finally, several theories about her impact regarding India yet to come, and we need to wait and watch. If the Joe Biden and Kamala partnership happens, and how will it benefit India? As of now, Indians can be elated and happy with just the election of a half-desi woman into mainstream US politics. Thank you and Jai Hind.